Welcome back. You have just tuned in to Women's AM. This morning I'm joined by Sister Yasmin, Sister Farah and Sister Naima B. Roberts on Skype. Jazakallah khair for joining us, Sister Farah. And obviously you're kind of fresh off the Hajj. You went last year, mashallah, so looking forward to hearing a lot more about that. But I understand Hajj isn't the only place you kind of jet off to. I understand you're a bit of a jet setter and travel quite a bit. So tell us a bit more about some of your other travels.
Alhamdulillah, I've been very lucky, and that sort of travel bug was instilled in me when I was very young.
Oh, lovely.
So I tend to plan my life around my next holiday, which I'm in a fortunate position to be able to do, alhamdulillah. So this year I went to Spain for a retreat in the mountains above Andalusia.
Oh, very nice.
In Ramadan, and it was a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
And one of the advantages of that sort of thing is just to meet Muslims from lots of different walks of life who worship in the same but different ways, and just to submerge yourself in the essence of spirituality and prophetic living. But my most memorable recent trip was to Madagascar.
Oh wow!
And having waited for 10 years, I think I'd wanted to go before the cartoon came out, and I decided I was tired of waiting for anyone else to come with me, so I just went off and travelled around for 3 or 4 weeks. And it is an amazing country. It's so beautiful and so varied, and the people are lovely. And you can say that about almost anywhere you go, but Madagascar is special.
Yeah. And was it everything you'd hoped it would be after 10 years of waiting? Did it live up to your expectations, really?
Much more.
That's lovely to hear, because sometimes you're a bit disappointed when you've been looking forward to something so much. So I'm glad to hear that, and I'd look forward to hearing more about it after the show, maybe. Sister Naima, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa barakatuh.
Welcome to the show. Jazakallah khair for joining us this morning. And obviously we're very fortunate because we're going to have you joining us tomorrow morning as well. So inshallah we're going to hear a little bit more from you then about what you're up to at the moment. So Jazakallah khair for joining us.
Thanks for inviting.
Without further ado, let's go straight to her views, where today we're discussing the Hajj. That time of year is back. One blessed month has just passed us by, only for us to be graced with another. Alhamdulillah, Dhul Hajjah is the month preceding Ramadan, Shawwal and Dhul Qadr. It is the month where the Islamic pilgrimage takes place, and it is one of the most significant and momentous occasions in a Muslim's life. Of course, this is a live discussion and we want to hear from you. So please do share your comments or questions by calling the studio. The number is on your screens now, or why not tweet us at Islam Channel, #WAM15. So Sister Farah, I'm going to come to you first. So what would you say the Hajj is? So
Hajj is obviously one of the pillars of Islam. It's the greatest journey that we will ever undertake, both in a physical, mental and spiritual way. And it obviously has, unlike other trips you might take, it has certain procedures which have to be followed, certain rituals which have to be completed. So it's a trip with a difference. It's a very significant journey. And I think it's one of those things which after you've been, you realise the ramifications to all of the rest of your life.
How big the impact is. I can imagine that must be quite a huge thing to take on board. Sister Naima, how would you describe the Hajj? What would you say Hajj is?
I really like that word significant, because I think that really does sum up, the essence of, an accepted Hajj, inshallah, is that, you're going in to do this act of worship, this obligation, one of the pillars, and basically you're going on, as the sister said, a physical, mental and spiritual journey. And subhanAllah, when I went on Hajj, one of the du'as that I made was, let me be touched, because I didn't want to go into Hajj and come out of Hajj this.
We've lost Sister Naima there, unfortunately. Inshallah, we'll get her back very soon. So, Sister Yasmin, I'm going to come to you now. So, what is the significance? We've heard about the kind of personal significance and the personal meaning of it, but what's the historic relevance of Hajj?
Well, essentially, Hajj means to intend a journey, and so one must intend to do that journey, and therefore it's an inward act as well as an outward act. It's you physically being there, however, you should also mentally be there as well. And also, it strengthens your spirituality, and so it's a connection between you and Allah. and it's a spiritual journey where you're visiting some symbolic traditional aspects of Islam, where prophets like Abraham and Moses, etc. These prophets who have long been there before, and you're going there and you're reliving those experiences.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Just to kind of walk in the footsteps of these kind of great people that have come before us. That in itself is something, to me, I'd find that quite overwhelming and quite sort of difficult to even come to terms with just that aspect of it.
And also, you've got the unity between the races and the genders. For instance, there's racial equality at Hajj. Everyone wears the cloak. For instance, with men, they wear 2 pieces of white cloth. So the poor man and the rich man would be the same. The prince and the poor would be the same. And also, if you look at historical greats like Malcolm X, who went to Hajj and he changed his mind completely. Because he thought white people were demons. And when he went and he came back and he preached to the people and he said, "Listen, guys, what I've been preaching you about hating on white people is absolutely wrong, because this pilgrimage changed my mind."
That's absolutely true. And he made the famous observation, didn't he, about seeing, lots of kind of different kinds of people from all different countries and backgrounds, sharing the same food, drinking from the same cup. And I think, again, that's a kind of really humbling experience in itself, isn't it? Just to be amongst all those people.
And also, the 2008 Harvard study by the School of Government showed that, after people went to Hajj, the School of Government, some members of the School of Government in Harvard were assessing their capabilities and their behaviour towards other people within their community. And what they found out was quite interesting. Those who went on Hajj and came back were much more, tolerant of other people's faiths and religions. They were more, men especially, were more, tolerant to women. They believed in equality between the genders. And therefore, I think, once, a person goes to Hajj, they spiritually cleanse themselves. I haven't been myself, unfortunately. Inshallah, I will in the future. But I'm sure people who've been, like yourself, have, shared some incredible experiences where, not only would you change spiritually, sometimes you might change certain acts that you used to practice as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Sister Naima, welcome back. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay, no problem. Welcome back to the show. When you were speaking last, you made an important point about, Hajj being one of the 5 pillars of Islam. So what exactly do the 5 pillars encompass, and what's their importance regards to our deen?
Well, obviously, the Prophet ﷺ said that the deen is built upon 5. And those 5 are, as every Muslim knows, the shahada, the testimony of faith, salah, the prayer, the 5 times a day, the Sawm, the fasting in Ramadan, the zakat, which is the poor due, and then the Hajj if you're able. So many Muslims, of course, as you know, this is their lifelong wish to go for the Hajj, because not everybody can go on the Hajj. So it really is one of those things that you feel that you've been blessed because you've been invited to the house of Allah. And if the means are open for you to go there, it really is something that you want to really make sure that you get everything you can out of it, mentally, spiritually, even emotionally. It really is, it's transformative, mashallah. And you see that, just as the sister was saying, it changes you from the inside. And sometimes without you even knowing it, you come back and you see your outlook is different. Your values almost have shifted. You've been to the house of Allah. You've seen the Kaaba. You have walked in the footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba and the millions and millions of Muslims before us who went and made Hajj. And you're doing exactly the same thing as them. And in fact, you're following in the footsteps of Prophet Ibrahim ﷺ and his family. And that's a really wonderful thing about Umrah and Hajj, is that so much of it is tied to the family of Ibrahim ﷺ and Hajar and Ismail and Ishaq. You really have so many connections there with, our spiritual ancestors. When you give it some thought and you realise its importance, it really is quite mind-blowing. Yeah,
that's absolutely true. I was saying to the sisters earlier, Yasmin and myself, we haven't performed the Hajj yet, so inshallah that will happen for us. But, the kind of, the hugeness of this undertaking is something incredible. So, Sister Yasmin, if you've got anything to kind of add to Sister Naima's, very clear answer there about the 5 pillars.
Yeah, I mean, the sister actually answered that brilliantly. And I think essentially, it cleanses you spiritually, and I think that's the main important thing. I'm not sure if you would agree with me on that, since you've been there yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the ultimate reset button, isn't it? And so we're all very fortunate if we have the opportunity to take advantage of that.
Inshallah. Sister Naima, you wanted to say something there?
I just love that, the ultimate reset button. I love that, because that's how you live it. You know, you go to Hajj one way, and you know, you've got your ideas, you've got your lifestyle, and literally, mashallah, you know, with so many people, that experience of Hajj, the highs, the lows, the triumphs, the challenges, you know, the best parts and the worst parts, to be honest, and the most challenging parts are actually the ones that show you the most about yourself.
I think that's really true, and I think you kind of touched on a really good point there about the kind of highs and the lows and the challenges, because you know, it is a really challenging time as well. So how was your experience? Obviously, you know, you went in the last Hajj, as I said. So what did you, how did you kind of deal with the challenges and some of the difficulties, maybe?
So alhamdulillah, you know, it's only just been a year since I went, and there are challenges which you can predict. So you know it's going to be hot. You know you're going to have to do a lot of walking. You know there's going to be a lot of people. So you practice before you go.
Yeah.
Patience is an acquired skill like any other skill.
That's true,
It's not just going to happen. So, you know, when you're in a traffic jam, practice patience. And then when you go for Hajj, inshallah, you will be better able to cope with the people patience required, inshallah. And do lots of reading. There's a lot of literature out there. There's talks at every masjid at this time of year. So go prepare yourself about what you need to do. Prepare yourself about what your inside should be doing. Prepare yourself about what your emotions are going to be like, and prepare yourself physically. Start walking now. If you're unwell, don't go see your GP the day before you leave. Go a month before. Get your medications optimised. There's lots to do beforehand that will limit the difficulties. And then embrace your trials. Trials are from Allah. Just teach us about ourselves. Embrace them and learn from them.
Absolutely. And Sister Naima, what about you? When was it exactly that you made the Hajj?
I also made Hajj last year, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So how about you? How did you find your experiences?
Yeah, no, I mean, what the sister said is 100% correct. I think that preparing for Hajj in every way, so learning your askar, learning the rituals, knowing what you're supposed to be doing, where you're supposed to be going, is very, very important, because otherwise you can get lost in the details, and then you end up sort of like, you know, walking around with your little dua book, you know, sort of like instead of really getting, you know, involved and, you know, being able to lose yourself and having that sense of khushu in your salah or your dua, you're kind of like flipping through to see, oh, what was that dua again? You want to avoid that as much as possible. But another thing as well is that the Hajj is often termed the journey of patience. What I found, subhanAllah, when I went, is that I found it to be the journey of dua. And preparing yourself to make dua is a tip I always give people, because you think you've got du'as to make, but trust me, until you've sat down and actually written down everything you want to ask for and brainstormed it almost, sort of whiteboarded it, and had time to really get everything down, as well as learning as many askar as you can from the sunnah, you are going to run out of du'as on Arafah, because it's a whole day of making dua, and trust me, people fall asleep. And it's an unfortunate thing, because you run out of du'as, you kind of said everything you need to say. So that journey of dua, for me, that's what I found really transformed my experience of Hajj. Because
that's absolutely true. You want to be completely focused and completely, you know, involved in the moment and not have any distractions, you know, such as looking back over your du'as. Some fantastic comments there, and we've really had an interesting discussion so far. But unfortunately now we do have to take a quick break. But don't go far, as when we return, we'll be hearing more about the rituals of Hajj and getting some tips from our panellists. Before we go, here's a reminder of this week's competition.